She stitched his wound and provided pain medication. No insurance, no authorization. That's what cost her the job. That's what the supervisor said after she quietly helped a homeless veteran the system had abandoned. She didn't complain. She didn't fight back. She simply turned in her ID and walked away. But 4 hours later, the main entrance doors opened and a 4-star general stepped into the hospital lobby. He wasn't visiting anyone. He came asking specifically for her. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, 38, had worked at Metropolitan Medical Center for 12 years. She was the kind of doctor who addressed every patient as sir or ma'am, no matter their shoes, condition, or background. That Wednesday afternoon, a man limped into the emergency lobby. He was thin, weathered, older. His ID read Marcus Rivera. The dog tag on his keychain said U.S. Marines. His jeans were torn. A deep gash streaked across his forearm, infected, swollen, angry. The front desk clerk glanced at him and muttered, "No insurance coverage." Sarah heard it. "That doesn't mean he doesn't need medical attention," she said. The charge nurse frowned. "We can't admit him. Not in the system." "Then I'll treat him outside the system," Sarah replied. She grabbed a medical kit, sat him down quietly, and began suturing the wound. Pain medication, proper bandages, the granola bar from her own lunch bag. Marcus winced as she worked. "Ma'am, I don't want to be trouble." Sarah gave him a small, steady smile. "You fought for this country. Let someone fight for you now." His eyes were dry, but they looked like they'd seen too much desert and not enough mercy. "Thank you," he whispered. "You didn't see me," she said softly. "But you're not walking out of here limping." The next morning, she was called to administration. "You violated policy," Director Patricia Crane said. "Unauthorized medication, unauthorized treatment." Sarah stood tall. "I helped a man who served this country. You're suspended pending review." No hearing, no warning, just a hallway that felt colder with every step. She packed her locker in silence. 12 years gone in one meeting. Outside, the Denver sun was too bright. She held her purse and her coat. "No badge, no go odbis." In the car, she whispered aloud, "I'd do it again." His voice echoed in her memory. "Thank you, ma'am." She replayed it over and over as she drove home through familiar streets that now felt distant. At her kitchen table, she placed her medical textbooks in a stack. All those lessons on protocol. None of them had ever taught her what to do when a rule came face to face with a person who just needed help. She made a cup of coffee. Let go cold. By evening, whispers had started. Some colleagues texted. A few said they supported her. Most didn't say anything at all. Then someone posted online. "Doctor suspended for helping a veteran. Welcome to 2025. Comments flooded in. "Policy over people. This is why we lose good ones. My father served and was treated like trash when he came back. God bless that doctor. Disgusting. She's a hero. Period. If this is true, that hospital should be ashamed. My brother came home from Iraq with PTSD and no help. Thank God for doctors like her. Fire the administrator instead." If he'd been wearing a suit and had insurance, they'd have given him a warm towel and a private room. Metropolitan Medical Center stayed silent. No statement, no apology. Sarah sat on her porch, trying not to cry. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from colleagues, from veterans, from strangers. One message stood out. "You told me what you did. You don't know me, but I know him. I'm coming." No name, no number, just that. Inside the hospital, Director Patricia Crane held firm. "We can't reward rule-breaking," she said, her voice clipped. "It's about structure, not emotion." The next morning, everything changed. Crew 14 a.m. The main entrance doors opened. A man stepped into the Metropolitan Medical Center lobby, crisp uniform pressed, for silver stars gleaming on his shoulder boards. The security guard froze. "Can I help you, sir?" The general didn't even glance at him. "I'm looking for Dr. Sarah Mitchell." Word spread like brush fire. Phones came out. Staff peeked from break rooms and corners. Patricia Crane rushed down from administration. "I ask you, General, may I ask what this is regarding?" The general's voice was calm. "I'm here to speak on record." By sunset, Sarah's suspension was no longer just a hospital decision. It was a headline. Local veteran groups began calling the switchboard, asking one question. "Is it true you turn away a veteran in need?" No one at reception had answers, just scripts and shaky voices. Sarah's neighbor, a retired history teacher, knocked gently and handed her a casserole dish. "My husband's serving Korea," she said softly. "When he came home broke and bruised, someone like you didn't ask about paperwork either." Sarah's voicemail overflowed. Social media crashed with mentions. A journalist called 4 times. 2 job offers arrived from private clinics. Both said, "We saw what you did." Back at Metropolitan Medical Center, morale cracked. Nurses took longer breaks. Paperwork slowed. A quiet rebellion crept through the halls. One supervisor wore a mini flag pin against dress code. A young resident hung a note in the staff lounge that read, "Compassion is not a policy violation." Director Patricia Crane called an emergency meeting. "This isn't about veterans," she insisted, looking at blank stares around the room. "This is about procedure, liability, structure, rules that keep us safe." One nurse raised her hand. "Safe from what, ma'am?" "Compassion." Crane ignored her. Later, her favorite coffee mug mysteriously disappeared from her office. That night, Crane sat alone in her office reviewing Sarah's personnel file. 12 years of service, flawless evaluations, top patient satisfaction ratings, no warnings, no complaints, no blemishes. Her phone rang. It was the chairman of the hospital board. "The stories everywhere, Patricia," he said. "Veterans groups are organizing. A congressman's aide just called me." She broke protocol, Crane insisted, voice tightening. "It's black and white." "Sometimes black and white needs reviewing," the chairman replied. "Fix this before it breaks us." Crane didn't sleep that night. By dawn, she drafted a cold, cautious statement. It defended the suspension, but promised a vague review of emergency care policies for veterans. It satisfied no one, least of all herself. Her assistant knocked pale-faced. "There's a military vehicle outside. And ma'am, it's got government plates, flags, too." Crane walked to the window. A black SUV had pulled up to the front entrance. A uniformed driver stood beside it at attention. "Who is it?" Crane asked, suddenly dry-mouthed. "I don't know, but they're asking for Dr. Sarah Mitchell. And they mentioned your name, ma'am." Crane straightened her jacket. Whatever was coming, she told herself she'd face it with dignity. But as the main entrance doors opened and the general stepped into the waiting room, her confidence cracked for the first time. The man stood tall in the center of the lobby. "I'm General Robert Hayes," he said, voice clear, steady. "And I serve with the man your doctor helped." He paused. "Marcus Rivera saved my life in Fallujah. Twice." A low murmur rolled through the staff nearby. The administrator swallowed hard. He didn't ask for attention. He just needed pain medication and a little dignity. "Your doctor gave him both," General Hayes said, his voice calm but firm. He turned to the front desk. "I understand you turned him away because he didn't have insurance." Silence. "When I was bleeding out behind a burning convoy, Marcus Rivera didn't ask me for a policy number. He didn't wait for forms. He just ran." The general's gaze scanned the room. "When we hit that IED outside Baghdad, 3 of our men were down. Rivera ran through gunfire. No helmet, no body armor, just duty, just loyalty." His voice remained measured, but his eyes burned with quiet authority. Then he reached inside his jacket and held up a sealed letter. "This one," he said, "is already on its way to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs." He pulled a smaller envelope from his inner pocket. "And this is for Dr. Sarah Mitchell." The administrator shifted uncomfortably. "General, this is highly irregular." Hayes's head tilted slightly. "So is punishing compassion." He turned to a young nurse by the nurse's station. "Where is she?" "She's outside, sir, sitting on the front steps." Without another word, Hayes walked out through the emergency doors. Sarah looked up as Boots approached the edge of the sidewalk. She blinked, unsure what to expect. The general stopped in front of her and saluted. "Dr. Mitchell," he said with gravity. "Permission to thank you properly." "I'm not military," she replied, standing slowly. "No," he said, "but you remembered what we fight for." He handed her the envelope. Inside, an invitation to speak at the National Medical Ethics Summit and a job offer from the VA, Regional Emergency Response Liaison. Reporters had already gathered. Phones were raised, but Sarah said nothing. She just stared at the hospital entrance behind him. "Will they change?" she asked. Only if someone like you walks back in, Hayes replied. For a moment, time stood still. Staff watched from doorways through glass windows on silent security monitors. Every breath felt held, every step frozen. Inside, Director Patricia Crane stood by the nurse's station, staring at the floor. Her title meant nothing against the weight of Hayes's medals or the moral authority of his words. This wasn't about protocol anymore. It was about a system that had forgotten its purpose, rules that had outlived their reason. Hayes turned back toward the crowd inside. Marcus Rivera, he said loudly, came home from 3 tours. He has more shrapnel in his body than some museums have on display. Marcus Rivera never asked for praise. He didn't chase recognition. When that infection set in, he waited 5 days before seeking help, not because he didn't need it, but because he was trained to endure, not to inconvenience. Sarah looked down at the envelope in her hands. I don't understand, she said softly. Why all this for me? General Hayes's face softened. Because this isn't just about you. This happens everywhere. Good people punished for doing the right thing. Someone had to draw the line. Inside, Director Patricia Crane stepped forward. General Hayes, may I speak with you privately? No, ma'am, the general said, loud enough for the lobby to hear. If you have something to say it here. A tense silence followed. Crane glanced up at the hospital's mission statement etched in glass. Healing with integrity. It mocked her now. Dr. Mitchell, Crane said, her voice carrying across the courtyard. Your suspension is rescinded. A nurse clapped quietly, then hesitated. Then others joined in, but the applause was hollow. That's not enough, Hayes replied. Lifting a punishment isn't the same as admitting it never should have happened. Crane's voice cracked. What would you have me do? The general said by admitting the failure wasn't hers. It was a system that forgot its purpose. Sarah remained seated, the letters still unopened. A small crowd had gathered. Patients, staff, even people from the street. Then someone stepped forward. Marcus Rivera. No cane, no limp. His infection gone. He said nothing, just stood beside Sarah. Crane looked between them. The general, the veteran, the doctor. 23 years of administration had taught her to protect the institution at all costs. But now she couldn't remember why. I apologize, she said finally. To both of you. I lost sight of what mattered. Sarah stood, brushing off her scrubs. What happens now? Hayes smiled. That depends on what's in that envelope. 2 weeks later, the hospital installed a plaque near the emergency doors for those who act with compassion before protocol. Sarah never gave interviews, but she returned not as just a doctor, but as the veteran care liaison, a role created for her. Marcus Rivera visits every Thursday, always with coffee, always with a small flag he sets on the front desk. One day, a new nurse whispered, "Is that her? The woman from the story?" Rivera replied without looking up, "She's not a story. She's a reminder." And now, every veteran who walks in a metropolitan medical center sees a sign above triage. You're not forgotten. You're not alone. Welcome home. The story spread fast. Other hospitals reviewed their policies. A state senator introduced the Sarah Mitchell Act, legislation that guarantees emergency care for veterans regardless of insurance. 3 months after the General Hayes incident, Sarah walked the halls with quiet purpose. Her badge said Metropolitan Medical Center on one side and Department of Veterans Affairs on the other. The change wasn't symbolic. Patricia Crane had been reassigned away from policy. 6 hospitals in the network adopted new veteran care protocols. Sarah's office, once a converted supply room, now had a window and a steady flow of visitors, veterans, new nurses, doctors asking questions she was now trusted to answer. General Hayes had kept his word. The envelope he gave her hadn't just offered a job. It offered a blueprint, one she followed with calm determination. On a rainy Tuesday, exactly 4 months after Marcus Rivera had limped into the emergency room, Sarah found a package on her desk. Inside was a frame holding her old badge. Next to it, a handwritten note. Some rules are meant to be broken. Thank you for knowing which ones. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was unmistakable. That afternoon, a young resident stopped her. How about a Marine in room 7? V8 is 2 hours away. Protocol says transfer, but he's not stable. Sarah smiled gently. What does your instinct say? The resident hesitated to treat him now. Then she said, "You already know what to do." As she turned to walk away, he called after her. "What if I get in trouble?" Sarah paused, and with a calm certainty that now carried across the entire hospital, she replied, "Then I'll call the general." Later that week, General Hayes showed up at the hospital himself. "Mitchell," he said, shaking Sarah's hand firmly, "I can't stop thinking about that day. You didn't just save Marcus. You reminded me what real courage looks like. I'd like you to come to the town hall meeting next week. Let's honor you properly." Sarah hesitated. "Ignoro, general. I just did what needed to be done." The general smiled knowingly. Funny thing about heroes, they never think they are. Sarah didn't answer. If you believe quiet courage still changes the world, hit like, comment, respect for those who choose right over rules, and subscribe, because stories like this remind us what honor really looks like. The transformation at Metropolitan Medical Center had been swift and complete. Within weeks of the incident, new protocols were established. Every veteran presenting at the emergency department received immediate triage assessment, regardless of insurance status. A dedicated Veterans Affairs Coordinator position was created, funded jointly by the hospital and the VA. Staff training now included modules on military culture, PTSD recognition, and trauma-informed care for service members. The changes extended beyond policy. The culture itself had shifted. Nurses and doctors found themselves asking different questions when faced with protocol versus compassion dilemmas. The phrase, "What would Dr. Mitchell do?" became shorthand for choosing humanity over bureaucracy. The overnight security guard, himself a veteran, noticed the difference immediately. "People treat this place different now," he said. "Like they remember it's supposed to heal people, not just process them." Marcus Rivera's recovery had been remarkable. With proper medical care, psychological support, and stable housing arranged through the VA, he had transformed from the broken man who first limped into the emergency room. His weekly visits weren't just social calls. He had become an unofficial veteran advocate, helping other service members navigate the complex medical system that had once failed him so completely. The ripple effects continued expanding. Other hospitals in Denver began implementing similar veteran-friendly policies. Medical schools added case studies based on Sarah's decision to their ethics curricula. The Sarah Mitchell Act gained bipartisan support in the state legislature, with veteran organizations lobbying for its passage. National veterans organizations took notice. The American Legion issued a statement praising Metropolitan Medical Center as a model for veteran health care. The Veterans of Foreign Wars presented Sarah with their Outstanding Citizen Award. Local news stations ran follow-up stories documenting the systemic changes her actions had inspired across Colorado's healthcare system. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. A group of medical students from the University of Colorado contacted Sarah, requesting permission to establish the Mitchell Foundation, dedicated to providing emergency medical care for homeless veterans. The irony wasn't lost on her that her name was now associated with the very type of compassionate care that had once cost her job. Patricia Crane, in her new role overseeing quality improvement rather than punitive enforcement, found herself studying Sarah's decision from an administrative perspective. What had initially seemed like a clear policy violation now appeared as a case study in moral leadership. She had quietly implemented Sarah's approach system-wide, though she rarely spoke about the personal transformation the incident had forced upon her. The broader healthcare community began examining similar cases nationwide. Medical journals published articles analyzing the ethical implications of insurance requirements versus emergency medical needs. Conference presentations featured Sarah's story as an example of individual courage challenging institutional inertia. Healthcare administrators across the country found themselves questioning policies that prioritize bureaucracy over patient care. Marcus Rivera's own journey had become equally inspiring. With stable housing and medical care, he had enrolled in a Veterans Affairs vocational rehabilitation program. His goal was to become a peer counselor, helping other veterans navigate the transition from military to civilian life. His experience with homelessness and medical neglect combined with his military background, made him uniquely qualified to reach veterans who had lost faith in the system. The weekly coffee meetings with Sarah had evolved into formal consultation sessions. Marcus would identify veterans in crisis, Sarah would coordinate medical care, and together they would ensure that no service member fell through the bureaucratic cracks that had once trapped him. Their partnership had prevented dozens of veterans from experiencing the homelessness and medical neglect that had nearly cost Marcus's life. The transformation extended to the hospital's relationship with the broader veterans community. Metropolitan Medical Center now hosted monthly health fairs specifically for veterans, offering free screenings, mental health resources, and benefits counseling. Local veteran organizations partnered with the hospital to provide services that went far beyond medical care. Job placement assistance, housing advocacy, financial counseling, and legal aid were now available in the same building where veterans received health care. The integrated approach addressed the root causes of veteran homelessness rather than just treating its symptoms. The success stories multiplied. A Vietnam veteran who had been living in his car for 3 years was now housed and receiving treatment for Agent Orange exposure. An Iraq War veteran struggling with PTSD and addiction had completed rehabilitation and was working as a peer counselor. A female veteran who had been denied care at other facilities due to complex trauma history was now receiving specialized treatment through the hospital's expanded Women Veterans Program. Sarah's role had evolved beyond individual patient advocacy. She now consulted with hospital systems across the region, helping them implement veteran-friendly policies and training programs. Her expertise was sought by medical schools, nursing programs, and healthcare administration courses. The woman who had once been suspended for showing compassion was now teaching others how to institutionalize it. The legislative impact continued growing. The Sarah Mitchell Act had passed the Colorado House and was moving through the Senate with overwhelming bipartisan support. Similar legislation was being introduced in other states, creating a national movement toward guaranteed emergency medical care for veterans. Federal representatives were discussing national implementation of the principles Sarah's actions had inspired. General Hayes maintained regular contact with both Sarah and Marcus. His initial visit had been personal, driven by loyalty to a soldier who had saved his life. But he had come to understand that their story represented something larger about American values and the treatment of those who serve. He frequently referenced their case in speeches about veteran care and civilian-military relations. The media attention had initially made Sarah uncomfortable, but she had learned to use it strategically. Rather than seeking personal recognition, she focused interviews on systemic issues affecting veteran health care. Her quiet demeanor and obvious sincerity made her an effective advocate for policy changes that extended far beyond her individual actions. Marcus Rivera's transformation had been perhaps the most dramatic. From a broken homeless veteran avoiding medical care, he had become a powerful voice for veteran rights. His speeches at veteran organization meetings were filled with gratitude not just for Sarah's medical care, but for her recognition of his fundamental human dignity when the system had failed him completely. The changes at Metropolitan Medical Center had become a model studied by healthcare systems nationwide. Delegations of administrators, doctors, and nurses made pilgrimages to Denver to observe the veteran care protocols that had emerged from one doctor's decision to prioritize compassion over policy. The hospital's patient satisfaction scores among veterans had reached the highest levels in the state. Patricia Crane found herself in an unexpected position of leadership in healthcare reform. Her experience managing the transition from punitive enforcement to compassionate care made her a sought-after consultant. She spoke frankly about the institutional barriers that prevent healthcare workers from providing optimal care and the courage required to change entrenched systems. The economic impact had been surprisingly positive. Rather than the financial burden administrators had feared, the veteran-focused programs had attracted federal funding, grants for veteran organizations, and positive publicity that enhanced the hospital's reputation. The integrated services model had proven more cost-effective than treating crises after they occurred. Sarah's dual role as practicing physician and veteran advocate had created a new model of healthcare leadership. Medical schools began developing curricula that combined clinical training with policy advocacy, recognizing that systemic change often required individual practitioners willing to challenge established norms. Her story had become a case study in moral courage taught in medical ethics courses across the country. The collaboration between Sarah and Marcus had formalized into a comprehensive veteran outreach program. Their partnership demonstrated the power of combining professional medical expertise with lived veteran experience. Other hospitals began recruiting veteran advocates to work alongside medical staff, recognizing that peer support often succeeded where traditional healthcare approaches failed. The ripple effects extended into unexpected areas. Emergency medical technicians received training on veteran-specific trauma responses. Police departments developed protocols for interacting with homeless veterans during mental health crises. Social service agencies created fast-track programs for veterans needing immediate assistance. The interconnected approach addressed veteran needs holistically rather than fragmenting care across multiple uncoordinated systems. General Hayes had documented the broader implications of Sarah's actions in a report to military leadership. The civilian healthcare response to veteran needs, he wrote, directly impacts military readiness and veteran retention. When service members see former comrades treated with dignity and compassion after their service, they maintain confidence in the social contract between military and civilian society. The first anniversary of the incident approached with quiet significance. Metropolitan Medical Center planned no formal celebration, understanding that the real measure of success lay in the daily operations that had transformed veteran care throughout the system. Sarah preferred it that way. The recognition that mattered most came from the veterans who no longer feared seeking medical attention when they needed it. Marcus Rivera had completed his peer counselor certification and was now employed full-time by the VA, working closely with the hospital to ensure seamless transitions between military and civilian healthcare. His office, located within the hospital complex, served as a bridge between institutional medical care and the lived experience of military service. His presence reassured veterans that someone understood their unique challenges and needs. The legislative victory had been complete. The Sarah Mitchell Act passed with unanimous approval in both chambers of the Colorado legislature and was signed into law by the governor in a ceremony attended by veteran organizations from across the state. Similar legislation had been introduced in 12 other states, with Sarah serving as an advisor to lawmakers seeking to replicate Colorado's success. National recognition followed. The American Medical Association presented Sarah with their award for courage in medicine. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs visited Denver personally to tour the hospital's veteran services and meet with Sarah and Marcus. Their story had become a powerful example of how individual moral courage could catalyze systemic change when supported by institutional leadership willing to prioritize values over procedures. The cultural shift extended beyond policy changes. Medical students now rotated through the Veterans Services Program as part of their required training. Nursing schools incorporated veteran care competencies into their curricula. Healthcare administration programs used the Metropolitan Medical Center case study to teach about leadership during organizational transformation. The next generation of healthcare providers was learning that compassionate care and efficient operations could coexist successfully. Patricia Crane had found unexpected fulfillment in her new role. Rather than enforcing compliance with rigid policies, she now worked to ensure that policies supported the hospital's mission of healing and service. Her experience with the Sarah Mitchell case had taught her that true leadership sometimes required admitting mistakes and embracing change rather than defending established procedures. The broader healthcare community had taken notice. Medical journals published research studies documenting the improved health outcomes and reduced emergency department utilization that resulted from proactive veteran care programs. Healthcare systems across the nation began implementing what became known as the Denver model, integrating veteran services directly into emergency medical care. The approach had proven both clinically effective and financially sustainable, demonstrating that doing the right thing often aligned with institutional success when properly implemented and supported by committed leadership. Sarah's morning routine now included reviewing cases from other hospitals seeking guidance on veteran care implementation. Her expertise was sought by congressional committees examining veteran healthcare policy. The quiet doctor who had once been suspended for showing compassion had become a national voice for healthcare reform, though she remained focused on individual patient care rather than personal recognition. Marcus Rivera's success story had inspired other veterans to seek help rather than suffering in silence. His weekly presence at the hospital served as a living reminder that recovery was possible, that the system could work when operated with understanding and compassion. His partnership with Sarah had become a model for veteran peer support programs being implemented nationwide. General Hayes visited annually, not for publicity, but to witness the ongoing impact of Sarah's decision. Their relationship had evolved from grateful recognition to collaborative advocacy for veteran healthcare improvement at the national level. His military perspective, combined with her medical expertise, created powerful testimony before legislative committees and veteran organization gatherings. The transformation was complete, but ongoing. Each new veteran who received care without bureaucratic barriers, each medical provider who chose compassion over protocol, each administrator who prioritized healing over procedures, extended the ripple effects of that original decision. The suspended doctor had become the catalyst for a movement that redefined how America cared for its veterans. On quiet Thursday afternoons, when Marcus arrived with his weekly coffee and small flag, Sarah would pause in her work to remember the infected wound, the policy violation, and the moment she chose to act according to her values rather than institutional rules. The decision that had once cost her a job had ultimately transformed her profession and restored dignity to those who had served their country. The plaque by the emergency entrance remained, its message simple but profound. You're not forgotten. You're not alone. Welcome home. But the real memorial was living and breathing in the changed culture, improved policies, and countless veterans who now receive the care they deserved simply because one doctor remembered what healing truly meant.